Hey all, Scott here, and would you look at the time, it's that time again for my weekly birth certificate check. Huh. Turns out my full name is officially Scott. Will eventually take a look at the first Mega Man Wozniak. It's all starting to make sense. This guy, right? Mega Man, Capcom's golden child, right after Ryu, and Leon Kennedy, and Monster Hunter. And Arthur. And the Snow Bros. Alright, he may not be as prominent as a mascot for the company as he used to be, but Mega Man's still a big name in the hearts of many. Nicknamed the Blue Bomber, he spawned 40 acres of games, side series, and spin-offs, which can be crazy hard to keep up with. There's the standard Mega Man games, often referred to as the Classic series, Mega Man X, fundamentally a successor to the classics with a grittier tone and new mechanics, which was followed by the Mega Man Zero games, focusing on the character of Zero in the X titles, which was succeeded by the Mega Man ZX games. Mega Man Battle Network, a tactical RPG series set in an alternate universe, which was followed up by the Star Force series. There's the Mega Man Legends games, which are 3D adventure titles. That's not even scratching the surface. There's all these handheld side games for the Classic and X series, comics, shows, Mega Man Soccer, the list goes on. The franchise was really kicking in the mid-90s to mid-2000s, maybe even a bit too much, leading to oversaturation. In recent years, Mega Man's definitely hit a rough patch, if you can even consider this a patch, but things are definitely looking up now, with new games being announced, teased, with more collections and merchandise as well. I've loved the Mega Man series, but there's a ton of games that I'm just not as familiar with as others, or just completely in the dark about. I'd love to traverse the entire world of the Blue Bomber, but for now, might as well start with familiar territory for me personally, and really the most fitting place to start in terms of talking about the series. Mega Man, released on the Nintendo Entertainment System in December of 1987. I mainly played this guy on the Wii Virtual Console back in the day, and eventually fully beat the title when the Mega Man Legacy Collection initially released on the PlayStation 4 in August of 2015. All I remember thinking when I beat it was, yep, that was definitely the first Mega Man title, so I should actually form an opinion on it. Let's take a look at Mega Man 1. Development of Mega Man began as a way for Capcom to really get into home console gaming. With them primarily being an arcade game developer, Mega Man was designed as a game that home console players could gravitate to. A 6-person team was on board, 2 members being credited with the overall creation of the character, Akira Kitamura and Keiji Inafune. Kitamura laid the groundwork for the character design in terms of the initial pixel art, with Inafune expanding upon it with animation and illustrations based on Kitamura's work. So yeah, while Inafune is often credited as the father of Mega Man, Kitamura created this sprite art first, which led to Inafune basically doing the rest of it. So if you want to be technical, Kitamura created Mega Man, Inafune developed the character into what we know today. Inspired by Astro Boy and donning a blue getup due to NES color limitations, Rockman was born. Yeah, they toyed with a lot of different names for him and ended up with Rockman, at least in Japan. I mean, it works, I guess, but looking at this character design and even seeing what he does in the game, it doesn't make you go, oh, so that's why he's called Rockman. Capcom USA changed the title to Mega Man as they thought Rockman didn't make too much sense, and I have to agree. I mean, yeah, Mega Man sounds a lot more generic, but it makes more sense. Look at this. This is Mega. Considering they changed the title, it was obvious Capcom USA was concerned with how the game would do in the States, so they made their own box art. I guess they thought, this won't sell here. Now this is what Americans have been asking us for. This is the reason people argue that video games can't be art. The cover was rushed beyond belief and includes my uncle with some shoulders he should really get checked out and a gun running away from palm trees and a sky. Mega Man didn't do too well in North America. The European box art, I think, is pretty good, at least compared to the other regions and in terms of other NES covers at the time. And the Japanese one is okay, I guess. Well, let's finally get to actually playing the game. I'll be rocking out on the version included in the Mega Man Legacy Collection on the Nintendo Switch specifically. Now, a major problem with this version is that it has a feature that's a forbidden fruit, if you will, the rewind button. I'm going to hell. Yeah, I really like this feature being added to so many of the retro game re-releases happening lately, as it's just a nice option to have if you want to use it. And if you love using it to death, I envy you. I have this overwhelming sense of guilt if I'm playing a game and use the rewind button. It's cheating, it's immoral, it's so convenient, it saves myself a lot of time. Damn it! Hey, I already beat Mega Man 1 before without the rewind feature. I earned this. Mega Man's story is as follows. Dr. Light and Dr. Wily are colleagues, both in the field of robotics. Light builds a smorgasbord of robots, 6 of them with their own clear-cut purpose to aid society. And in addition to the 6, 2 two were created as siblings to each other and would help out around the lab, named Rock and Roll. Wily, jealous of Light, grew cold and planned to take over the world by reprogramming the 6 robot masters Light created to be used for nefarious purposes. After chaos ensues, Rock volunteers himself to be reprogrammed into Mega Man, ready to fight his way to pure justice. Now you won't be getting any of that sweet plot in the game at all. Weirdly enough, this is all explained in the intro to Mega Man 4. So lucky you if that's where you started the series off at. You could read the manual, but you'll get showered in the fact that Capcom USA had no clue what the hell this was, so they just started making stuff up. Save Monsteropolis, Mega Man! At least we got a special thank you from Captain Commando himself. Alright, Mega Man 1. First impressions are key, and they really got the color black down. The game allows us to select any one of all 6 evil robot masters. After a selection is made, we're thrown into the stage where we have to get to the very end to fight them. And that is pretty much it in terms of a simple explanation of what to expect out of a Mega Man game. Seriously, the core gameplay is pretty basic. It's almost like exactly what you think of when the idea of a video game pops into your head. Get to the very end of the level. You can hop and attack. Of course, Mega Man is much more than that, but at its core, it's incredibly simple and easy to understand. Jump with the A button and shoot some pew-pews with the B button. The game's main gimmick is once you defeat any robot master, you gain their ability. Yeah, that means if you defeat Cutman, you get Cutman's weapon, and the thing is, each robot master is weak to another robot master's weapon. They can all be defeated with your standard arm cannon, but if you want to get each boss fight over with quickly, you have to deduce who's weak to what power. Some are just common sense, like Fireman being weak to Iceman's power, while others can be tricky to figure out. Each weapon can be selected at any time with a pop of the start button and replaces your standard pew-pew, but unlike your standard pew-pew, you can't use them all willy-nilly. Using a power will drain its specific thermometer-shaped energy meter, as the manual puts it. You have to use them sparingly, and sometimes only when you absolutely have to. Of course, you can refill the energy for your abilities, as well as your own health bar, with item pickups here and there, but you really should get used to the standard pew because it always does the job and it doesn't run out of energy. Man, coupling the fact you can choose whichever stage you want and that you can use your slain enemy's powers made Mega Man head of the class back in the day. The non-linear progression and array of powers were really interesting and innovative concepts that not a lot of, if any, games were doing at the time. Mega Man 1 is truly an absolute classic. Oh wait, is this game difficult? I think it is. Alright, let's do this. Mega Man 1's design philosophy half the time is to just throw a bunch of shit at you and tell you to suck it up. The entire series is associated with being difficult, and while I don't think it's an absolute necessity for a true Mega Man title to be hard, it's definitely a running theme that started with the original. For better or for worse. This game can be brutal, but in ways that are just unfair due to poor enemy placement and the great slowdown of 1987. Mega Man titles on the NES always had a problem with sprite flickering and slowdown, and it all started with this guy. When you run out of lives, you do have to start at the very beginning of the stage, but your progress in the game as a whole is retained and your energy meters are all replenished. Plus, having to replay the stage isn't too bad considering you've definitely learned a lot about its quirks at that point. The stages themselves aren't that problematic, it's just your first time through, be prepared to die a fair amount of times until you get the swing of things. However, that fair amount of times can be just ungodly frustrating. I hate these things. They're an absolute life bar hog. Look at this. Ah, the disappearing block. Somebody at Capcom designed these and said the players will love us. These things are a staple in the Mega Man games, and it's all about pattern recognition. This isn't a hard section by any means in terms of design, but what really pushes it over the edge is Mega Man's control in this game. He just loves slip-sliding around, and it's putrid. I forgot how different Mega Man feels in this compared to later entries. Those games feature much tighter controls, while here it takes a second to stop. I definitely got used to it, but it's still an issue in my opinion. These platforms like to flop down when they cross these markings. Again, not inherently difficult, but Mega Man's weight and the overall slipperiness make it so. The Robot Masters are all fairly easy if you know their weakness. A few of them are pretty simple to take down with just your arm cannon, but a good chunk of them you need a specific ability to do anywhere near enough damage. In terms of weapons I like to use outside of boss fights, Elecman's is great. It shoots electrical beams in 3 different directions, which laps in the face of the direction Mega Man's hand is pointing, but whatever. However, this thing is the most slowdown riddled weapon out there. Cutman's is pretty nice to take care of these barnacles of enemies, and Flame Man's is just kinda satisfying to use. But I gotta be honest, I generally just stuck to Mega Man's standard standard arm cannon most of the time. I don't know, I think it's just because I didn't want to worry about wasting weapon energy. There is one weapon that you don't obtain through a robot master though, and you have to use the super arm in a Lekman stage to get it. The trusty magnet beam, seemingly an optional item, but not at all, as we'll see incredibly quickly. Up until this point, Mega Man 1 has been generally fairly manageable. It's when we have to take on the Dr. Wily stages that Scott's Ulcer Fest 2018 officially starts. First off, one thing that I do love about the Dr. Wily stages in Mega Man games is that they roll with the mere fact that you have all the weapons and thus design the stages around them. The thing is, that includes the one that seemed optional and it turns out to be completely integral here. I've been waiting to use this stamp all year. This is the Yellow Devil, also known as Canary Satan. You can really only get one hit on him before he moves to the other side of the screen. Also, let it be known that he comes out of nowhere at the very start and can still hurt you. This is where the pause trick comes into handy. Mega Man allows you to pause the game with the select button, different from hitting start to bring up your weapon selection. Using the Thunder Beam and constantly hitting select glitches the game out and gets multiple hits on him. Am I a pussy for doing this? Well, yeah. The next stage's intro was absolutely awful for me. Just an onslaught of constant enemies in just the worst spots imaginable. We have to take on Cutman and Electman and then end things off with a battle against ourselves. Next stage is easy peasy, just get through all this and take on these robots in a bubble. The final stage has us going through this short section and also having an opportunity to nab the Yashichi, the only time it appears at all in the whole game. It refills all of our energy, which is nice, but really? Only once in the whole game? We take on the other 4 robot masters and finally, it's Wily time, and very quickly it's also end of game time because Wily is fairly easy to take on. So that was Mega Man 1, and was beating it worth it? Yeah! Mega Man triumphantly runs away as the credits roll. And hey, as somebody who started the franchise with Mega Man 2, hearing Mega Man 1's end credits music and finding out that Mega Man 2's title screen is a variation of that was really cool. Well, I did it again, and in terms of my official opinion on Mega Man 1, yep, that was definitely the first Mega Man title. It's not a long experience or an impossible game or anything, but it's just not the most pleasant. I beat it in around 2 hours, even considering the multiple deaths in the playthrough and being incredibly conservative with the rewind feature. While its ideas are fantastic, Mega Man 1 obviously was growing pains for the series. At least visually it looks pretty good for an early-ish NES game. Mega Man games are known for their excellent soundtracks, but Mega Man 1 is just okay in my opinion. It feels like it's still in the Peach Fuzz era. There's this twang to the soundtrack that almost feels like its voice is cracking and it can't hold a note for very long. Still pretty good though, just not as great compared to later entries in the series. Overall, I don't dislike Mega Man 1, it's just not my go-to Mega Man experience. It's very similar to Sonic 1 to me. It does a good job laying the groundwork for the rest of the series, but everything really starts with the sequel. If you wanted to play it, I'd highly recommend the Mega Man Legacy Collection. That way you get all 6 of the NES Mega Man games, so you aren't just stuck with one and you can see how much the series improved on the system. Or you could always try the mobile version. Yeah, that's one way to get your name on a watch list. While it can be brutally difficult, Mega Man 1 can piss me off any day because it spawned a great soccer game. Capcom, where's the Mega Man Soccer Legacy Collection, including all 1 games?